And now on to the third section of the exam prep for the MS-500 Microsoft 365 Security Administration Certification Test. I'm Will Martin, and we'll be discussing implementing and managing information protection. This will account for 15 to 20% of your test. We'll cover the listed areas. We'll go into details of each as we get to that section. Securing data access in your organization, and for this specifically, we mean external users directly accessing data within your tenant. This can be accessed by trusted external users using business-to-business guest access or accessed by Microsoft support staff in response to a support case you've opened. Business-to-business sharing is done with guest accounts created in the tenant. The account is created and granted access to specific resources. Then an email is sent to the external user. When they connect, they can use that guest access account solely for accessing the resources they've been granted access to. Anyone can allow access by default in several different ways. The most common is Office 365 group access. It can be blocked at the group level with the first link. Creating groups can also be locked down following the second. OneDrive users can also share content with external users. This can be blocked in the SharePoint portal as the third link shows. And if guest access is required but locked down for individual users, administrators can still create guest accounts in the Azure AD console or by PowerShell. These accounts can then be granted resource access by users. To control access for Microsoft support personnel, you'll want to enable Customer Lockbox. Customer Lockbox gives you control of when our support teams access data in your tenant. Any Microsoft access needs to be associated with a support incident regardless and is fully audited. And Customer Lockbox ensures you're in control of it. In order to enable Customer Lockbox in the Office 365 admin console, search for Lockbox. So how does this work? It starts when someone at the organization experiences an issue with Office 365. After an admin troubleshoots the issue, but they can't fix it, they open a support request with Microsoft. When we receive a support request, the Microsoft support engineer reviews the service request and determines a need to access the organization's tenant to repair the issue. The Microsoft support engineer logs into the Customer Lockbox request tool and makes a data access request that includes the organization's tenant name, service request number, and the estimated time the engineer needs to access the data. After a support manager approves the request, Customer Lockbox sends the designated approver and at the organization an email notification about the pending access request from Microsoft. Anyone who is assigned the Customer Lockbox Access Approver admin role in Microsoft 365 Admin Center can approve Customer Lockbox requests. The approver signs into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and approves the request. This step triggers creation of an audit record available by searching the audit log. For more information, search for Auditing Customer Lockbox Requests. If the customer rejects the request or doesn't approve the request within 12 hours, the request expires and no access is granted to the Microsoft engineer. An important note here is that Microsoft does not include any links in a Customer Lockbox email notifications requiring you to sign in to Office 365. We assume you can get to the Admin Center and find the Lockbox request node. After approver from the organization approves the request, the Microsoft engineer receives the approval message, logs on to the tenant, and fixes the customer's issue. Microsoft engineers have requested duration to fix the issue after which the access is automatically revoked. Note, all actions performed by a Microsoft engineer are logged in the audit log. You can search for and review these audit records. Now on to sensitivity labels. Sensitivity labels are the basis of sensitive information protection in Office 365. They're used by the system and users to mark items that should be protected, both internally and externally. Sensitivity labels allow you to mark data as sensitive using watermarks, headers, and footers, and to control how data is accessed both in and outside your organization. Labels can keep a person from saving, editing, printing, or sharing data. Sensitivity labels are a replacement for information rights management, IRM, that is also available in your tenant. These can be used in virtually all areas of the Office 365 system, including the Office applications. When you create labels, after the replication of the label configuration completes, the labels are available to the Exchange and Office applications automatically. However, before they can be used in SharePoint and OneDrive, you must enable them using the button shown on the slide. A good sensitivity labeled deployment will take business units into account. Each will have their own requirements that must be considered. An example of a business unit specific label is HR might need labels that no other business unit does. Notice that the image to the right with different groups have access to different lists of labels, so there's no overlap required. However, you can have overlap if you wish. You'll want to consider whether you will use manual labeling, which requires user education about why things would need to be labeled, or automatic labels, which will apply labels according to their content. Note that automatic labeling will require an E5 license. Keep in mind that users will mark anything as sensitive. The system can either label items automatically or recommend a label for the end user to add. While automatic labeling requires an E5 level license, recommended labeling only requires the E3. If automatic labels are required, the system can allow them to be replaced. If the content label is labeled manually, automatic labels will not override them regardless. Automatic labels can require a justification if users are able to replace them. They can also be configured so a user can't change them, and so a different user could. So you can't change a label on a resume you access, but somebody in HR might be able to. If IRM is deployed in the environment, you should consider migrating to sensitivity labels. Any IRM hierarchy you've created will be retained, including all permissions, but some capabilities won't migrate. See the listed web page for details. Label analytics, available from the Security and Compliance Center, quickly shows how the most popular labels are being used. This is a real-time report from the system. If you hover over the items in the bar graph, you'll see how account for that label. When you view the details, it will show how all labels in the environment have been applied. This is available in both the compliance and security centers and requires membership in the listed role groups. Now moving on to data loss prevention. Office 365 gives you the capability to ensure that sensitive information can't be sent outside your organization. Or if it is protected using sensitivity labels. Let's see how this works. Our Office 365 DLP relies heavily on sensitive information types available in Office 365. There are over 100 existing sensitive information types, and you can create your own to meet your needs. These can be regular expressions, keyword lists, keyword dictionaries, exact data match databases, document fingerprints, or DLP functions. Exact data match databases and DLP functions can be used in PowerShell or XML only, and exact data match databases require an E5 license. Document fingerprints, while available in the uh, user in the console, are available only for use in email. When you deploy DLP policies, you select the type of data you will be protecting. If you use the standard templates, you'll have a complete policy that includes the sensitive information type, as well as supporting information needed to reduce the possibility of a false positive. If you create your own policies, you can use built-in sensitive types or any custom types you've created. Also, if you use custom types, you don't need to require supporting evidence. When you create policies, you have the option to deploy them without enforcing them. and with or without policy tips alerting the users to their existence. A DLP policy can also be configured to allow a user to override it or to mark an instance as a false positive. If overrides are an issue but required for a small group, create a policy only for that group and set the policy to allow overrides. Then create another policy without overrides for everyone else. On the first policy, set it to stop processing additional policies so the following one won't apply. Which brings us to an important note on creating DLP policies. In DLP, all policies that match are considered unless one says stops processing. And the most restrictive is applied. Keep this in mind when you're taking the test. As noted, policies in all workloads can block access, but the content can be encrypted with a sensitivity label. But the content can be encrypted with a sensitivity label if it's being sent by email. Something of note, by default, until data in SharePoint or OneDrive has been indexed, it is available for sharing. If you wish to block this, you can change a setting in the tenant that will mark all SharePoint data as sensitive by default. Then, until it's been indexed, it can't be shared. There are two primary DLP reports in the tenant, both available in the Security Compliance Report area. They are DLP policy matches and DLP false positives and overrides. The former shows how policies have been applied across the organization. You can use this to see how much impact specific policies have in your organization. The latter shows who has reported specific hits as false positives or who has overridden a policy. To be alerted about a DLP match, you can create an alert that will fire when one happens. You will then get an email and can see the alert in the alerts area of the Security Compliance Center. You can then drill into that policy that was and see what policy was matched, as well as the data that caused the policy to fire. Alerts can also be created in the audit log search area of the Security Compliance Center after you find specific activity that matches your filters. And now we step on to Cloud App Security, Microsoft's Cloud App Security broker. Microsoft's Cloud App Security enables trusted access to literally thousands of applications you can access from Office 365. It helps you address the following four major areas: addressing shadow IT in your organization, protecting your information in the cloud, detecting and protecting against cyber threats, assessing and protecting your IaaS environment, that's infrastructure as a service environment. These are common use cases for cloud app security. They're used by many of our customers worldwide. The Cloud App Security Dashboard's gadgets show the listed areas of concern. You can go into the details of any of these to open investigations, create policies, or follow recommendations depending on the gadget. On many of the Cloud App Security Dashboard gadgets, you can drill in very deep to get to the heart of an issue. From there, you can manage doing things such as blocking or trusting access to applications, creating reports for your executive level staff, managing user investigations to see whether or not somebody's been doing something wrong, deploying conditional access policies to ensure that data isn't exported from the organization. You can also configure Cloud App Security to pull logs from your various network appliances. This data can be used to find rogue applications your users are accessing. These will show up in the list of applications you can either trust or block. You can do this sync manually with an E3 license, but an automatic upload requires an E5. And here's a list of useful cloud app security websites. Many of these are based from the Cloud App Security Best Practices website.